Capitol Report is a production of Senate Media Services.
This week, modernizing Minnesota's election system with photo ID and our final introduction of a newly elected senator. Plus, a call to ease access to the COVID-19 vaccine for Minnesota's seniors and the debate over local control for future school closures. Stay tuned for this week's Capitol Report. Welcome to this week's program. I'm Shannon Loehrke. Senator Scott Newman is advocating for a bill that would require voters to provide photo identification as a means to modernize elections in Minnesota. I spoke with him this week. An initiative to add the requirement that voters present a photo ID when they go to the polling place was put on the ballot as a constitutional amendment in 2012, and it failed. But you would like to revive it. Why?
Good morning, Shannon. Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to be here. To answer your question, I have carried this bill now 3 times. The first time was in 2012. That's when it was a constitutional amendment. That was defeated. And I am bringing it back now because I want to take another look at it. This is something that I think is really important for the people in the state of Minnesota to consider. Why am I bringing it back now? We have a different governor. We have different members of the legislature. In 2012, there was a very controversial marriage amendment that was also on the ballot. We'll never know, but did that controversial marriage amendment help drag down the constitutional amendment on voter ID? And do the people in Minnesota not want to embed in their constitution the aspect of voter ID, but would be more open to a statutory change? So those are the basic reasons why I have come forward with this. I came forward with it last year, but we got interrupted by COVID, so I'm coming back with it in 2021.
Now, there has been certainly a lot more study about the incidence of voter fraud since 2012. And also in committee, you cited a specific court case as one of the reasons why you were rethinking this. Could you talk a little bit about that?
That's Crawford versus Marion County. It's a United States Supreme Court. It is the seminal court hearing in the United States. It has laid out all of the ground rules when it comes to photo ID. It has ruled that photo ID in the United States is constitutional if you build into the statute, and this bill does have them, the various protections so that you do not disenfranchise people with a photo ID requirement. And in this bill, I have incorporated as best I can every single one of those constitutional protections. And the important thing for people to remember is that photo ID in the United States, if the law is written correctly, is constitutional. And there are approximately 34 states in the union that have adopted some form of photo ID.
So you mentioned in committee that this is a modernization tool. What do you mean by modernizing our voting system?
One of the findings in Crawford specifically was that a state has an interest in modernizing the election process. And the example that I often use is really very simple. Early part of the 21st century, photography was not nearly as good or as fast or as accurate as it is in the 21st century. Today, we have digital photography. Pictures are easily moved over the internet. They are very accurate. And that's something that wasn't available to us before. So that is just a simple example of modernization of an election system that the United States Supreme Court says is appropriate. And a photo ID requirement is therefore appropriate.
Secretary of State Simon said that voter fraud in Minnesota is minuscule, but I think there is some disagreement about that. What's your view on the amount of voter fraud that is occurring?
Secretary Simon did agree that voter fraud in Minnesota occurs, and I agree with that. It does occur. As a matter of fact, the Supreme Court case that I just noted has stated that voter fraud in the United States and in Minnesota is a matter of historical fact. It happens. In every general election, there are people that are convicted of voter fraud. What we don't know is how extent or to the extent that it occurs. That we don't know. And so, again, going back to Crawford, one of the things that the Supreme Court held was that if we use this tool, it will help determine and detect voter fraud. So the fact that we do in fact have voter fraud, if we use this tool, it will assist us in detecting and preventing more voter fraud. And the court also went on to say that in close elections, voter fraud does in fact have the ability to tip the election. And if that's the case, then those folks who cast a legitimate vote have been in fact disenfranchised.
Now, you said to me privately that you're interested in restoring integrity and faith to those in our election system, to those who feel like it lacks integrity right now. But how do you balance then if there are further requirements for people to get the valid ID, the integrity or the balance whether their vote is counted because they have to take extra steps to get it versus the people who have the ability already because they've lived in the same place and they have a valid driver's license and it's easy for them. Like, how do you weigh that balance of voting?
Keep in mind that while there is a large share of our population that does not believe there is anything wrong with our voting system, there likewise is a very large number of people who have lost faith in the integrity of our voting system. And they feel that they have been disenfranchised when someone casts an illegal vote that is in fact counted. Okay? So if you take the modernization tool, the Supreme Court then added to that the state has a legitimate interest in making sure, to the best of its ability, that the integrity of the voting system is maintained. And if that is the case, then participation in our democracy is encouraged and more people vote. And there are honestly a lot of people out there that feel that the integrity of the system has been lost and therefore are in favor of photo ID. Now, how do you protect against the folks like Secretary of State Simon said in assisted living? He said that there were thousands of them that were going to be disenfranchised because they don't have a photo ID. And number one, I disagree that there are thousands of them. There's a lot of elderly people that are still active and driving around and have IDs. There are a lot of elderly people that have IDs for purposes of Medicare and for purposes of government programs. So there's an awful lot of government issued IDs out there, just, besides driver's licenses. However, for those folks who do not have an ID, this bill and the United States Supreme Court has held that if you provide them, if the government provides them with not only the ID, but the underlying documents necessary to get the ID and do it at no cost, that is a minimal burden cast upon that small group of people that don't currently have a photo ID. And that is a legitimate thing for the state to require. And again, it's a minimum burden. It is a burden, no question, for some people. For you and I, if we drive a car, we've got our ID. We're done, right? For that small group of people, the state will provide them with that ID. Now, if you can't get the documents necessary to get that photo ID, maybe you were born in another country, or you were born in a shack someplace and don't have a birth certificate. You can go to the auditor and sign an affidavit saying, I have tried to get the necessary documents to get my photo ID. I cannot get them. They don't exist. You are allowed to vote and your vote counts. But you're signing an affidavit that that's true. And so you got to tell the truth that you actually tried.
Senator Newman, we have to leave it there, but I want to thank you for taking the time to walk us through this. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Several Republican lawmakers called a press conference to share some of the challenges Minnesota seniors face in obtaining the COVID-19 vaccination and to urge that those seniors get highest priority.
Hundreds of seniors and their family members have contacted me with their fears and disappointment about the governor's rollout of the vaccine program. They have shared stories about the devastating impacts that the pandemic has had on seniors, such as isolation, depression, and loneliness. I want to tell you about my friend Bill Johnson. Bill's an 87-year-old veteran Air Force officer who lives in Invergrove Heights. He has 6 underlying conditions. 2 of them include heart disease and diabetes. If Bill gets COVID, it's pretty scary. Bill wanted to come here today to testify how he believes that we should be putting seniors first, but he wasn't going to risk leaving his house. This is where our seniors have been, locked down for 11 months. I had many other seniors who wanted to come here today, but trying to get them to get out of their house and go out into the public is not happening. Bill isn't comfortable with the computer either. And when it comes to anything medical, he has his local doctor and his neighborhood pharmacist. When the vaccine rollout came out and there was a website he was supposed to go to, he had no idea how to do that. So he had his 2 kids calling the hotline for 4 hours last Tuesday simultaneously while on the computer stuck at the website. When they did answer the telephone, they were told to go to the website. So, and I got their texts with photos of how many times each of them had called the hotline. Over 300 calls each one of the kids had made. So it's not an easy process to try and get in the queue to get a vaccine.
Aiken County has the highest median age of any county in the state of Minnesota, and yet there's no pilot programs in my neck of the woods.
On Tuesday, January 19th, at exactly noon, my sister, my niece, and my nephew, and myself all logged into the Minnesota Department of Health website. At the same time, we got the phone number off the site, and we also called, all in the attempt of getting a vaccination appointment for my mother. My mother's 89 years old, and we knew it would be a challenge for her to try to navigate the phone system and the online portal for her to get an appointment. We spent 3.5 hours and hundreds of phone call attempts on 5 different devices. We ultimately did get an appointment for my mom for the 23rd of January. The way we were finally able to get the appointment was not through the Department of Health website, but my nephew saw a tweet from NPR with a different link in it, and he clicked on that link and immediately got into the site and got my mom a vaccination appointment. We were persistent, and we were really, quite frankly, very lucky to get it.
We need to shift the vaccine to the locations where the seniors are, not have the seniors go to where the vaccine is. Community pharmacies are scattered throughout Minnesota. We're in large towns, we're in small towns, we're in the 4 corners. We are where the people live. We know our patients. We know how old they are. We know what their health conditions are. And most importantly, we know how to contact them. They're already coming to our stores several times a month. They already receive their vaccines from us. We do flu vaccines, pneumonia vaccines, and importantly, Shingrix vaccines. The important about Shingrix is that it's a frozen vaccine, much like the Moderna vaccine is. So community pharmacies already handle storage and handling of frozen vaccines.
In the final installment of our Introducing New Senators series, I spoke with Senator Gene Dornink, the only newly elected Republican from Greater Minnesota to join the Senate. You defeated DFL incumbent Dan Sparks in the November election to represent District 27, which includes Austin and Albert Lee and your hometown of Hayfield. Sparks held that seat since 2002. Why do you think the voters made a different choice this time?
Well, first I want to thank for the opportunity, Shannon, so thank you for having me. Good question. You know, it was a 2-cycle race. I mean, I entered in 2016, and anybody knows you have to have name recognition and choice, and so choice is always good. So I worked really hard to get my name out there, and also I'm a different kind of Republican. I mean, I grew up on a dairy farm, had the union background, and a small business owner, so I fit the district really well. And then being out there that long and being a small business owner, I could, campaigning is meeting people. So I campaigned actually for 4 years, worked, and then I just talked to people. And that's what it is, listening, communicating, hearing their issues. And so that's what we did.
And you mentioned union, and I wanted to follow up on that because I asked this question of Senator Jason Loehrke, a Republican who entered in a special election 2019. He's a union electrician. You are or were in the carpenters union, and I wonder about that because traditionally the DFL is the stronghold of the union, and I wonder, do you see that changing? Is that the union and the DFL, is there something changing in that?
Absolutely. When I entered the union in the late 80s, all my work and the other trades were strong Democrats, and it just seemed like in the last 4, 5, 6 years things have started to change. I think part of it is that the DFL has kind of stopped listening to us trades workers. I know I'm not saying it's intentional, but the Republicans have wanted to reach out to us, and so when I ran in 2016, I was actually endorsed by my carpenters union, which was exciting that because I didn't think they would, I didn't know, and so they were excited. And then in 2020, I got their endorsement again. And I had some other trades that would have endorsed, but just with the COVID and the bonding bill being held up and kind of the bickering, they just wanted to stay out of it. So definitely there's a change. And then it was sad to see President Biden, the first thing he did was shut down union jobs. And that's just not, he killed those jobs, and that doesn't help us wanting to vote for him. And so, and also in line 3, that's an important project in Minnesota that we support, and so that's definitely there. I think they're not listening as well as they should.
Your biography states that you lost your job as a carpenter in the Great Recession, and then that you worked really hard to start a business that is now successful. So basically what happened to you was an unprompted career change, and now here you have another career change as you enter the Senate. I wonder how these experiences will shape you as a lawmaker.
Yeah, it's a really good question. First, I want to credit my parents because we know that family is, where we learn I did anyway, hard work, responsibility, and then moving forward to our family, that's the same work ethic and working hard. So as a business owner, we listen to our constituents, or our people we work for, and then being as a family. So I think in the business world, you're kind of a servant. You're not a public servant, but you're serving community and the family you're serving. And then as you transition into public service, you're still doing a lot of the same things. You're listening, you're communicating, and you're standing up. And sometimes you got to make those hard decisions. Like this year, we're going to have to make some hard ones in the budget year. So public service is just kind of an extension of what I've done in the past with serving the community.
You wrote on your campaign website that one of your goals is, quote, standing up for our farmers and agribusinesses who continue to suffer under high taxes and overregulation. What kind of change would you like to see in this regard?
So it's all businesses too, not just farm, but I think government and private sector partnering together. And I think sometimes the government maybe means well, but they sometimes kind of come down kind of hard on the MPCA is coming down on some of the farmers and some of the communities. Albert Lee is with their wastewater treatment plant trying to upgrade. Just some of that more communicating and working together and trusting local officials, and because they're elected and they know. So not one size fits all, not top down, but listening, partnering together to solve these problems.
Over the summer, the Albert Lee Tribune published an opinion that was written by the chairman of the Freeborn County Republicans. And I just thought it was curious because he devoted an entire paragraph to saying that you believe in term limits and that you'll only serve as long as a citizen should. So it just prompted me to wonder, is among your constituents, is there a concern about lawmakers who spend too much time at the legislature, and are you committed to not necessarily serving as long as you can? I just wonder why he wrote that, what you think about that.
You know, it was a big thing as I went door to door at term limits. People are just kind of get fed up with, and it's more of a federal issue because they leave the community and they're not as close. We're in Minnesota. We're a citizen-run government, so we're back in the community and stuff. So it's not as big a deal. But I still, for myself, I kind of committed to 12 years. But you know, we have this is a 2-year term, so I'll have an election in 2 years. So we'd have to win all those. So. But I think that fresh energy and new ideas is good. I think this year was really, people were kind of fed up with the status quo, and they wanted something new. And I think, like I said, I think I bring fresh energy and new ideas. And so, yeah, so that's my commitment. If I would continue to win 12 years for me personally, but I do see some benefit for some people staying in longer because there's a lot to know here. So it does take time to be able to be a good legislator because there's stuff to learn. So that's kind of my commitment. It's just a personal commitment.
Now, you are the only Republican from Greater Minnesota in this freshman class of senators. So I wonder what message you think your constituents want you to bring here to the Capitol.
Well, you know, you got to remember that I think the message has been being brought because there was only 5 Senate seats in Greater Minnesota that are still in Democrats, or the DFLs had that. So 2 of them left and came to independents, and I won my race, and so there's only 2 left. So I think they're saying that one size doesn't fit all. We're not Minneapolis. Start listening to us, and let's work together on these problems because it is one Minnesota, but we need to, and I think I bring that too as more of a working together. And so that's what I'm going to try to do my best.
And finally, before we go, you are father to 12 kids. You mentioned working for your family, being of service to your family in an earlier answer. And judging by your campaign photos, it looks like your kids were helpful to you in the campaign. How did they feel about having their dad as a state senator?
Well, they loved it. In 2016, when we started, before I was considered it, we had our family meeting and we said, hey, this is what we're thinking. It's going to be hard. This is what it's going to look like. And of course, they're, yay, let's do it. It's exciting. And so they thought I was going to win in 2016. I knew that probably not going to happen. But, you know, we worked hard enough to win. But we had a little over 45% of the vote. And so we decided to do it again. So that would have been really hard on them to lose this time, but again, I believe that we just do our best, and whether we win or lose, it's about doing our best. But yes, they're very excited. They were very involved. Lots of parades, lots of fairs. We had not 2020, obviously, but they enjoyed it, and they're very happy.
Senator Gene Dornink, I want to thank you so much for taking the time.
All right, thank you.
Governor Walz's use of emergency powers to manage public schools during the pandemic came before a key Senate committee this week.
Senate File 2 simply removes the ability of the governor to use emergency powers to close our schools. It's just a very narrow improvement to Chapter 12, and it puts I believe the decision making where it should be, which is the locally elected school boards.
But we are still in a situation where 3,000 Americans are dying every single day, and on top of that, we still don't know what the long-term effects are for those who contracted or who got COVID-19 and survived. So I think that we need to act as a collective, and I think that hundreds of school boards and school districts acting separately without any sort of coordination is not the best way to address this.
There are many private schools that have continued to remain open, practicing safe health practices recommended by the CDC. They've been open, and I haven't seen one single headline of that there's super spreader events and that anybody's risks or lives are put in harm's way. And so needs have been accommodated, but there's health issues. And so we're doing that. They're masking, they're practicing all of the recommendations. So please provide me that where I missed the headlines, that the schools have become super spreader events for all of the private schools who have functioned through the entire pandemic.
We have had outbreaks in private schools. We have had outbreaks in public schools.
The incident command system, and when you're dealing with the emergency management, is that the state is there to assist the local control. They're there, the locals develop the plan, and the state is there to assist them.
It's not like the governor wakes up one day and says, well, I'm just going to close the schools. He's relying upon a lot of people to give him that guidance. We do have a safe learning plan that's been put out. It provides state guidelines for opening our schools, and it relies on the county COVID case rates.
This is the first time these emergency powers have been used under this criteria, the interpretation that the governor has made for this kind of a virus. The statute is specific: tornadoes, floods, things like that were considered natural disasters, well understood. Now, this interpretation is the first time. And so the question I have for you, Assistant Commissioner, since we have type A, we have many viruses that come around, is your thought that the next time this will happen again, that will shut everything down for a year?
The courts have supported the governor's interpretation that a public health emergency does fall under Chapter 12. This is the worst public health emergency we've had in a century.
You know, let's take, for example, we could use my district. There's an outbreak in Shakopee, and 20 miles away is the New Prague School District. Why should New Prague, where there's not an outbreak, have to react to something that's happening in Shakopee?
We need to give our school districts the background and information and guidelines and let them make the decisions.
This is an international crisis. It's not just one city, one town, one school district. It's an international crisis.
Senate File 2 is about who best can make the decision about how and when to safely open schools.
Join us again next week as we delve into more topics affecting Minnesotans. I'm Shannon Loehrke, and on behalf of all of us at Senate Media Services, thanks for watching.